Hello everyone, welcome. Cynthia Miller here, and today we're painting a cute little chickadee. We have lots of birds in our neighborhood and I love going out and identifying them and trying to figure out who's making what sound. I'm just mapping out my artwork here, and I'm showing you this space down below. I'm going to make it look more like it's the ground. In the first painting, it just looks a little bit bland there. So I'm going to put a little bit darker shading in there. But I like the way this looks. It's a little bit old-fashioned looking. And I think the reason why is the berries in the back tree, they're just a slight bit lighter, and so they just sort of fade into the back. But the shape of them, the color of them, they do look a little bit sort of old-fashioned, which I like. And I'm just matching up the colors for the tree. I used the quinacridone rose for the berries, as I was showing you there, and I'm using burnt sienna, and the red shade that I use is Madder Lake Deep, and I'll probably get a different shade of red soon, but that's sort of my go-to when I want to mix something for the trees. So the back tree will be watered down with more water, and we're going to be doing it when the paper is a little bit wet as well, so it'll have sort of a mottled look to it. So what we're going to do to start is put all kinds of water on your paper. Just go back and forth with your water, make sure your paper's wet, and I'm going to hold my board up and down on the top as well as the bottom, just sort of playing around with this burnt sienna and sepia color. And the sepia is sort of a cross between black and brown, so it's very good for what I'm trying to achieve here. I want it to look a little bit misty, a little bit gray. The winters here are usually gray skies, and it's just going to be a little bit light in the background where those gray spots have not settled. And so I'm going to take a tissue here, and this is sort of the way I'm doing this one. It's not how I always do things, but I thought I'm just going to blot this out in the shape of the bird. I've already got it sketched out, and so this really helps to bring the white into the collar of the chickadee, and it helps to bring the shading of the tummy as well. So I've gone ahead and placed some of the very light rose color into where the berries are, and you'll see in the next shot where it's pretty much started. And basically with the branch, again, just very much diluted my color, and I filled those in just a tiny little bit. Now what I'm doing now is just going in there, finishing up the branch, and I've got, you know, a nice size brush. Try to use as large a size brush as you can, and these are round brushes, so they're great for getting into tiny little spots. And here I'm just holding my hand because I don't want it to go down onto the wet paper. But basically the back tree was painted while my page was still wet. I had to sort of jump right in there and do that. And so what happens, it really does kind of blend into the background, and the paper absorbs that color quite quickly. Now you can see there's just a tiny little bit of pink showing. And what I'm going to do is just go back in there for a second or third time and make those little berries, little round berries. There's a little bit of pink for the background, and then the berries are a little bit more detailed. Just pay attention to how your paper dries, because you're going to want a little bit to be in the background, and you're going to want a little bit to be more defined. So basically, as your paper dries and you continue to put paint on it, it will start to create the hard lines and leave the fuzziness in the background. And this is the effect that you want. You want the first layer to be a little bit fuzzy, and then as your paper dries, you go in and put the tiny little round berries in there. So my paper is pretty much dry, and so now I'm going to start working on the berries. that are on the same branch as the bird. And so these are the ones that I want to have the hard lines. I want them to be more distinct, more detail, perhaps even a little bit bigger in size. And so I'm just putting these on. I did sketch out a few, but as I go, I change things up a little bit. And as they dry, you can erase any pencil marks that you don't like. But basically, I'm just creating a bunch of berries there, more details, and so probably go in there 2 to 3 times just to give each berry 2 or 3 different shades of the same color. And then I'll go back and do the branches and sort of make them all come to one branch. So I'm starting the big branch now that the bird is sitting on. And again, these colors are a little bit golden brown, so burnt sienna and my reddish shade. And you can see it's quite a bit darker than the branch in the back. And that's really what I wanted to do, is bring out the front and let the back branch sort of fade into the background, make it look a little bit misty. So some of the things that I was talking about when we talked earlier about having everything look and make sense, you want the bird's claws to wrap around that tree. You want the branch. You want the branch to be consistent from one side of the foot to the other, to the next foot. You want the bird to look like it's sitting naturally. And these things happen when you sketch it out. So it's really important to have a look at your sketch before you start putting paint to your paper, because you can't change that. It's just the way that it is. And I'm going to go over a few different pointers here for the bird. As you can see, it's got a white band around the neck, so it's mostly around the back of the neck. There's 2 different sections of black, and right now we're talking about starting with the shoulder area, really is what it is, and a little bit on the tummy. So I used a nice buttery yellow color, and as I put it on the paper, I blended it with a Payne's gray. And so what you're going to get is sort of a shade transition. And you've seen birds before. The feathers just sort of transition from one color to the other. They're just absolutely spectacular. So I'm just playing around with these colors here, and I believe it was a butter yellow into more of a burnt sienna rather than the gray. I think there was sort of a mix there. And, you know, I did have pencil lines that I erased before I put the paint on, because I don't want the pencil lines to show through for the different sections. So I had it penciled off where the shoulder was, I had it penciled off where the wing was, and then I erased the pencil, and I could still sort of imagine where that shoulder is. So we're just putting on that butter color and then bringing in a little bit shade of, you could use sepia, you could use Payne's gray or burnt sienna, just something to bring that transition into a darker brownish shade. And then the same butter yellow underneath the wing. So this is the top part of the belly. And it looks like it's quite vivid yellow here, but it's not really. It fades, and I put a little bit of the, might even be sepia that I used here. So just play around with that to get a nice color that you like. Perhaps even look at a chickadee and just sort of have a look at that shading, because I know it's sort of hard to tell sometimes from a watercolor painting. But this underbelly, a little bit darker under the tail feathers, and just a nice butter yellow at the top and shading into darker. And I decided to do the tail feathers next because as I mentioned, we've got white to work with, so I'm just going to bring in some Payne's gray and just gradually bring my brush down horizontal on the tail feathers so that there's still a little bit of white showing through. I start with a nice light gray, move into a darker gray, and it looks like there's individual feathers there. Now it does sort of point upwards a little bit, and I kind of like that, and it kind of gives it the look that there's more than just the outline. There's actually some form to it. Now you can see how the foreshortening is happening, where the right side of the bird, the only part of the wing is showing, the left side of the bird is mostly wing. And so you've got it coming to those two wings coming together in the middle of the back, but it's only part of your back is showing. So you sort of have to have that angle correctly set up so that your wing looks balanced and even. And again, these are the things that you want to pay attention to when you're sketching out your bird. But this is very simple. We've got, like I said, just Payne's gray and very light with lots of water, and just a little bit of a darker hue of the gray. And then just outlining that a little bit more. It's almost black, this Payne's gray, when you put it on for the second or third time, which is what you want, at least for the chickadee. And it's what I use for the head as well. So the birds have this white collar around the neck area. We've got the shoulder painted on. Oh, and then there's a little bit of a triangle of white right on the upper part of the chest. So you can see that white triangle quite clearly, and you want to remember to leave that white. I think it's a very distinctive part of the chickadee to have that white triangle right there. So here I am erasing a few more lines and starting to put the black head on, starting with the beak, and try to make the beak look like it is attached inward to the edge of the head. I think sometimes, you know, we tend to just put it on the outside of the head, but it's actually looks like it's more sort of within the circle of the head, if that makes sense. And then the eye, and then you can start using backward strokes with very dark gray. There's a few feathers sticking out there, but basically your feathers are going to run from the nose area around the eye. So it goes up and around. And you want those strokes to look like feathers. So if you can make them sort of distinct, that's great. You can make it look a little bit hairy around the head. You don't want it to be too smooth, but you don't want it to be too ruffled either. Otherwise, you would have to have the stance of a ruffled bird. But basically, those are little hairs. And so what I'm doing is just bringing that black down into the white band. And by doing that, I'm giving a bit of a rough edge. I'm giving it, it looks like there's those white feathers on the collar now, because the edges of the black are coming in to the white. So it's just a little bit of a jagged edge along there. So you want that very black, this is sort of the last piece of it really. And then hold on to your triangle of white and start to put black in from the beak again around to sort of the side. It's almost like having a cheek, black on the cheek there. And it's just sort of a triangle piece that you fill it in. And again, the feathers go from front to back. So you want those strokes to make it look like feathers. And you're going to put in quite a bit of pigment here because they are jet black. And the way that I did the eye, I put the eye in, there's a little bit of white in the eye, and it's quite black around the eye, but then I pulled up a little bit of the paint around the black of the eye, and that really helped to make it stand out as well. Now you can see the chest. I've really outlined that triangle of white by putting just tiny little strokes into it to make it look like there is the black feathers going into the white feathers. And you don't have to color the white at all, just use the white of the paper to make that happen. But the more that you put the black into the white with tiny little strokes. It will look like white feathers as well. And so the feet are similar color. Just as I mentioned, when you sketch it out, make sure it looks like the feet are grasping onto the branch. I'm using my rigger brush I've just showed you here, and I'm just going to do a little bit of the ends of the berries. I think that by putting just a tiny little bit of black, almost thread look on the berries, they look like they are real. And you can do a little bit more detail on the branches as well with just a few shadows and shades and bumps and different colors of the brown. But that is basically it. And I'm going to leave you with a few more of these beautiful songbirds. I don't know if these are chickadees that are singing, but I hope you have fun with that, and maybe we'll see you at one of our classes soon.